mentioned it was Abram. Eventually his name's going to be called Abraham. And this place he goes to will be named after his grandson, right? Because we know that when they talk of God and they try to distinguish what God this was in the Old Testament and the Hebrew Scriptures, they said the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. We all know that Jacob, when he fought with God overnight, one night before meeting with his brother, was called Israel. Abraham, in his going forth, in his listening to the call and his going over here, has been changed. He's been transfigured himself. And yet, I think about this, I bet you he didn't know at all what was coming. He didn't know what was coming next at all. And would that be how it was for Peter, James, and John? They're climbing up this high mountain, and not only is that symbolic of going up to see God, but a high mountain is a long place to walk up to, and it's an event. And could it be they didn't expect it, and yet, as they went to this whole new place, they were so blessed? Because in this brightness of Jesus in the face and the clothes, they saw for the first time that, hey, wait a second. Jesus is God. And there are some scholars, not all, but some scholars, that think that when Moses and Elijah are talking to Jesus, that they're actually explaining to him how this is all going to come down when things go south in Jerusalem and how it does fit into the Father's plan. And so it's possible that the apostles not only just saw the God of Jesus, but heard the human of Jesus and were just blown away by it all. Didn't know what to do. And yet as they come down the mountain, and now they're in a different place again, are they changed? Are they transfigured? And as we sit in our pews, I'm not sitting in a pew this weekend, I'm up here, I don't think we can call that pew. There's a certain comfort in just sitting there. There's comfortable chair or a cushion there. We have a certain comfort in being where we are and a certain resistance to a call to be somewhere else. And yet all of you are going to go through, most of you are going to go through, stand up and come up here for communion, and that's going from being comfortable on your seat to all of a sudden people can see you, you'll feel a little less comfortable. But we're called to go forth. In the second reading, it's real subtle, but he says we're called to a holy life. And I'm not so sure that this going forth is always a physical going from here to there. Maybe there's something inside of me that needs to go from here to here or somewhere around that. And that what it's really about is maybe in this Lenten season, I have to have a better relationship with God than I have now. And the highest point of relationships I know of is marriage. And I have my oldest sister, Marianne, has a husband. He does the same thing. But they have 5 kids. And at all the weddings, he has gotten up and given a little father of the groom talk. And he always says pretty close to the same thing. For those of us in family, get to be there at all of them. He thanks everybody for being there. You almost get the feeling like you're privileged to be at the wedding that he's paying for. That's really nice. He thanks my sister for being such a great wife. But then he gets his shot in. He tells the groom, all 5 of them, he told every one of them, he said, listen, if you want to have a good marriage, there's 3 words you have to know. 3 words, that's all. He said the first word is, I was wrong. The second word is, I'm sorry. And the third word is, I love you. Now, I've been hearing this for many years, and it's some years since the last wedding. But I'm starting to think that maybe this isn't just good advice for a marriage and making that relationship better. Maybe that's a good idea for me to take as a prayer in my Lent to make my relationship with Jesus a little better. Imagine that I tell God, hey God, I'm wrong, I was sorry, I'm sorry, and I love you. Now, I've done some amount of talking with guys that are having some marital problems. And it's real interesting because almost without a shot, I think of that great advice. And I think, hey, here is this guy having these problems and these struggles. And of course, we all have some problems. So I told him these 3 words to say. I was wrong, I'm sorry, I love you. It seemed pretty simple. But without exception, they told me that I was a little bit off on this. And I said, well, how could I be off on that? It's just 3 simple words. He said, well, you see, my wife is the one who's wrong. She's the one who says, Chase, she's sorry. Isn't it interesting that to have a good relationship, we don't have to be right, we have to be humble. And there's a certain pain in all the bad relationships. And that pain, even if they're distracted a little bit, that pain is still there, and it hurts. And to some extent, none of our relationships are perfect, so we feel a little bit of that pain. And yet, I do want to have a good relationship with God, a good relationship. Some years back, I was at a CEW, and this is back when Father Matt was here, so that goes before we were all combined into the different single parish. But anyway, he's there, and I'm at this retreat weekend, and I'm all enthused, and I'm going through, and on Saturday night, they have this reconciliation service. And I'm going along and doing real great, and I get in my line, and I sit down, I'm in front of Father Matt, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, I have nothing to say. So I told him the truth. I said, Father, Matt, I can't think of any sins that I've done. And Father Matt looked at me and smiled, thankfully, and said, Bob, welcome to the human race. That was some years ago. And I thought about that a lot, and I thought of how wrong I was, because I was so filled with pride, even with all my enthusiasm, I had a certain pride that I was on top of it all. I'm not sure I don't have a pride now, and Father, if you've got some time later, that I don't have to confess that to my God, at a very sincere level, I don't have to say, I was wrong. God, I am sorry, and God, I want to try to love you. I think that can make for a good prayer. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I love you. I invite you to join me in my new Lenten prayer. Are you ready? I was wrong. I am sorry. And I love you. Abraham went to a different place. Peter, James, and John were transfigured as well. And perhaps us in our Lenten journey, in our going and being wrong and in loving, we can be transfigured.